I totally understand that we're trying to do something strange, and people from the outside look at, oh, okay, we're gathering this group of people. They immediately think, that's a cult. They just think it's something strange at a minimum. The thing is that most good ideas, probably all good ideas, start out seeming pretty bad, actually, especially with frontier technologies. And you need to create an environment that allows for the discussion and the development of these ideas before they can just be downtrodden by either the status quo or even just well-meaning experts in fields, right? And so by creating an environment where edge ideas can actually be explored, it's extremely exciting because we can see what they can actually become. We can allow for some revolutionary thinking from the edges to be developed and start to become potentially solutions for the future. My name is Timour Kosters, and I'm the co-founder of Edge City.
I am Janine Leger. I am a co-founder of Edge City, where we convene leaders across tech, science, and society in pop-up villages around the world.
So Edge City creates pop-up villages around the world where we gather 300 people who are working at the frontiers of their fields to come together and experiment, collaborate, and learn from each other. The idea is that we want to create a laboratory of experimentation for new ideas around culture, technology, and ways of living.
As Edge City, it really started as an experiment with a sense of how do we bring people together. We've recognized that we can do that, and there's so much value in doing that first step. And there's so much more that can now be achieved with people who are spending time together and collaborating. Our longer term vision is to start building these pop-ups that create a really deep culture around building, around co-creation, around multi-generational families, around a healthier way of spending time together, that seed full-time spaces. And over time, building this network society concept where people are actually living happier, healthier, and more productive lives.
So our mission is to accelerate human flourishing by creating spaces for collaboration and experimentation. We essentially aspire to be a modern-day enlightenment salon where we bring together diverse groups of leaders from different fields to collaborate and innovate. And the way we do this is by creating what we call pop-up villages around the world. Our current society is very fragmented. It's a very polarized environment, and it's a very fragmented social fabric. So we have people that are feeling more and more lonely, more and more isolated, but also more and more enraged by the difference in opinion across any number of ideological divides. What we want to create here in this particular container, in this group of 300 plus many hundreds of visitors that come throughout the month, is an environment of thoughtful discussion about these differences in opinion and seeing what comes out of that, what comes out of those collaborations and of the new projects that get formed between folks, sometimes across pretty meaningful divides in opinion. Things change, and we need to change the ways that we live and the institutions that we have in order to adapt to that. So the things that form our current society may have worked really well at a certain time. They were the right answer to a particular problem in the past, but we need to create the environments that allow us to explore what the new answers are for the current time. And we, as the founders of Edge City, we don't want to assume that we have those answers, but we want to create the spaces where some of those answers can be conceptualized, can be developed, and importantly, they have an environment to germinate, to actually grow from a seed into a seedling. Maybe this is because of where I'm from, being born in post-Soviet Russia, but I've always been skeptical of top-down ideas of solutions to big problems. But I am incredibly excited about bottoms-up emergent innovation as an alternative to that.
And we're building this all in, a certain experience framework that's almost developing. We've got community dinners on a daily basis where people are getting together. We're trying to be very intentional about health. So we've got a distributed trial that's going on where people can join a health app and track their sleep and health goals on a daily basis. We have a run club, workouts in the morning, sauna cold plunges at every location, as well as the food that we're serving being healthy. Having conferences and workshops about health as a whole is a really important piece. And the second piece is about making sure people are co-creating and building here. So we've got demo days on a weekly basis that we're trying to get as many of the community to as possible, as this reminder of you should be building during the week, you should be co-creating with others, and a programming based on emergence where it truly half the time feels like chaos, but it's this understanding that everyone should and can contribute and celebrating what they're contributing. Using both how we're reiterating that on a weekly basis at the community dinners and community town hall like experiences on Sunday, as well as the technology that we're using where people are able to add their own events to a calendar that everyone else has access to.
And so the things that we're innovating on are not just technologies in the traditional sense that we think of them in terms of software and hardware, but it's also the social technologies that we care about, meaning how do we convene in community? How do we create environments where people can connect meaningfully? So we have things like every evening we have a community dinner where people gather and they share food and they meet new folks and connect with old friends. We have open mic nights or times when people can play sports together in the local parks. We also think it's very important to integrate well with the local community. So we invite locals in the town that we're in currently, in Healdsburg, California, to participate in our sessions. And there is this bi-directional learning and teaching that's happening as well.
Another big goal of ours is the multi-generational environment. Ultimately, I think that education has had very little iteration alongside technology's iteration today. And we're about to see technology drastically change the way that we educate people. AI is going to make a huge difference with one-on-one teaching, BCIs, who knows where that's going to go, and so much else about how parents can spend their time nomadic in different places. Families are rethinking what it means to be a family. Are you a nuclear family, or are you able to bring in family friends? Are you sending your kid to a normal school environment, or more people are doing homeschooling? There's this opportunity that we have with Edge City to create these multi-generational environments where kids can learn differently, where education can be a part of the environment versus sending kids away to be educated. And that's something that I'm super excited about, because young kids learning, young kids' curiosity drives that same sense of curiosity in adults. And it creates a space where it's totally okay for the 14 to 21-year-old age group to participate too. And I think these young builders are going to do some exceptional things in the world. And allowing them to be in a space where they are nourished, where they can build social connection, where they can learn from both young and old, will completely change the environment of education that we see today.
We feel that even if we can create an environment for a month where people can come and really feel what it feels like to live in a village-like environment, in a thoughtful, fun, engaging community, that will then have a lot of downstream effects where that culture can be created and incubated here, and then it can spread outside of these environments. Not only do we create an actual Edge City community, but also people get to engage in this way of living, and then they go back to where they live and they spread those ideas. They change their lifestyle and the way that they live and the things that they do with their own communities. We know that we don't have all of the answers, and we don't want to pretend to, but we aspire to create an environment where people can come together and figure things out through experimentation, through collaboration. And so the thing that really landed for me was like, wait, this makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. I've always been drawn to things like this because I'm a third culture kid. I moved from Russia to the UK, to the US and Berlin now, and I'm always just looking for that diversity of thought, for the overlaps between ideas. And it's kind of funny to realize that that's what drives me here. That's why I create these spaces, you know?
I was just fresh out of Deloitte, figuring out what was next, and was planning to start a commune up in Tahoe. Ultimately, with the pandemic, I realized that would be a horrible idea because no one would actually want to spend time together. And instead, I gathered a number of friends where we moved up to Leavenworth, Washington, a small mountain town where we had 30 of us spending time living together, biking, working, and ultimately just being in community. That was the start of realizing how if you just get coordination right with humans at the core, there is so much more that is possible. We spent 6 months traveling between different mountain towns and then landed in Austin, Texas, where my partner and I decided to build a cul-de-sac community. We were toying between the idea of buying a piece of land and starting an entire community from scratch. But in seeing so many of those projects go wrong, we decided, why not reimagine somewhere that was already great and had a number of different homes that we could convince friends to live in? But why do all this? Why did I get excited about it? I remember hearing from so many people how the dream would be to live near friends, yet so few people actually doing it. And the people that were saying that was their dream were all extremely competent. Ultimately, I wanted to give it a go. How hard could it actually be? We ended up building a community of about 70 people living in close proximity of one another. And so many of my learnings there was that it's slow to build in a permanent way. And ultimately, I started searching for what were models in the world where community was actually coming together naturally. And started to look at what innovations, what technology was out there that was helping make this possible. I landed on Ethereum being a phenomenal solution, seeing how people were traveling conference to conference and how the nomadism of the Ethereum community didn't die off at the end of COVID like it did in so many other communities. Something was there to tap into. There was a social technology element to Ethereum that was really interesting. The public good side of it was the piece that I was most excited about. How could we, as society, use technology in a decentralized way to support many public goods being built that were accessible to all? And that's not just open source technology, but also public goods in the physical. I knew we had a while to go, but I didn't realize how many other people were thinking about something similar. I was lucky enough to spend a year at Gitcoin where I focused on public goods funding and learning about different funding mechanisms to support communities' shared needs. In that time, I got to know a lot of different Ethereans, and I stumbled upon Zuzlu as this project that was being built by Vitalik, Milos, and Nicole Sun. Ultimately, I dove headfirst into helping out and building what became the first pop-up city that we've seen. That was a 2-month-long experience that we had in Montenegro last year. And seeing the quick iteration of building of ideas together in collaboration with the 200 people that were there was electric. It was this magical recognition that if you just tweak a few things about how we spend time together in society, you can actually get so much more done. It doesn't have to be a slow build with people moving into homes next to one another in a community. It can be these quick electric bursts of temporary campuses that get created.
We have these big visions for the future and we see these environments as being incredible places to innovate, but do we scale by continuing to make them bigger? Because one thing we've learned is that vibes don't scale. It's very difficult to create double the size of event and keep the energy and the vibe that we've created. So our potential solution for that is to open source everything we've learned and to encourage and help others to create environments like this themselves. And they'll have their own takes on how this works, but we want to scale almost fractally and horizontally rather than, making this just the biggest thing it can be. I hope that the ideas that we can incubate in these environments can reverberate into the broader culture and be spread by the people who are here into the broader society and taken back to where they're from and where they live and their communities. And they can share the things they've learned about healthy ways of living and eating and building community So we're creating very exciting and energizing environments, and then we hope that the people that come here and have this experience can go back and essentially be ambassadors for the new ideas and technologies that they learned about and that they helped to co-create. And so we're building this feeling of belonging and community and ownership that then can also spread across the world.